Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating paradox. In a world where speaking one dominant language often seems like the key to success, could holding on to your heritage language actually make you richer? Let's just put it bluntly. Think about it. When a family starts to climb the social and economic ladder, is the language their ancestors spoke an asset that gives them an edge? Or is it actually a disadvantage, something you got to leave behind to get ahead? So, to really dig into this, we're not just going to stay in the world of theory. No, we're going to ground this in the real world by looking at the experiences of two specific communities in modern Russia, the Chuvash and the Tatar peoples. And what their story shows us, well, it's something I don't think you'll expect. Okay, so let's jump right in by looking at the conventional wisdom. For a long, long time, the thing pretty much everyone believed was that assimilation is the way to go. It's the path upwards. Researchers who've looked at this point to a long-standing Russian policy that aims for national unity by supporting the use of one single language. And look, this idea isn't just a Russia thing. It's a belief you see all over the world among policymakers. The idea that having one single dominant language just makes everything simpler and helps everyone get ahead. And there's actually a name for this idea. It's called the assimilation hypothesis. And the theory, well, it's pretty straightforward. As people get more successful, better jobs, more education, a higher income, they're naturally more likely to blend into the dominant culture. And a huge part of that is adopting its language. I mean, on the surface, that totally makes sense, right? And here's the thing. At first glance, when you look at the data, it seems to back this idea up completely. It really looks like progress has a price tag, and that price is language. Just look at this number, -21%. I mean, that is a staggering drop in the number of Chuvash speakers in Russia. And get this, it happened in just 8 years, between 2002 and 2010. That shows a really fast and dramatic shift is going on. And this isn't just a one-off. This trend pops up again and again in studies of both the Chuvash and Tatar peoples. The more successful families become, the more educated parents are, the more they move to cities, the weaker their connection to their heritage language becomes. So the data looks pretty cut and dry, right? Success and assimilation seem to go hand in hand. Okay, so we've got a clear pattern here. It looks like losing your language is linked to gaining economically. But this is where it gets interesting. This correlation brings up a huge question. Does giving up your language actually cause those better results? Like, is it a trade-off you have to make to be successful? Let's get really specific here. Think about a young Tatar student. If they speak only Russian at home, are they really going to get better grades in school than a kid who speaks Tatar with their family? This is the question that turns our whole story on its head. And folks, here is the twist. A really deep study of more than 700 ethnic Tatar students found the complete opposite of what you'd expect from that assimilation hypothesis. The myth is that speaking Tatar at home hurts a kid's performance in Russian. But the reality? Well, the Tatar-speaking students, they actually have a lower chance of getting bad grades, and that includes in Russian language class itself. How about that? And it gets even clearer when you break down the numbers. So far from being a disadvantage, speaking Tatar at home is actually linked to a higher chance of getting top marks in classes like literature and chemistry. And maybe most importantly, it's linked to a lower chance of getting bad grades in Russian, literature, geometry, and physics. It's like the bilingual brain is getting this incredible workout, and it's paying off across the board. Okay, so better grades are great. We all love good grades. But does that academic advantage actually translate into the real world? We're talking about money. Does it mean a bigger paycheck at the end of the month? Well, to figure that out, we can look at this amazing natural experiment that happened in Tatarstan. See, before 1997, the school system was pretty much monolingual. Russian was the name of the game, especially in the cities. But then, in 97, a huge reform happened. They made Tatar language teaching mandatory, right alongside Russian. What this did, totally by accident, was create two perfect groups to compare: the pre-reform monolingual grads and the post-reform bilingual ones. And you won't believe what happened when researchers compared these two groups. The result was absolutely stunning. The graduates who went through the bilingual system, they have the potential to earn wages that are an incredible 46% higher than the folks from the monolingual is. I mean, that's not just a little bump. That is a life-changing amount of money. So where does all of this leave us? After all this, what's the big takeaway from this really complex, kind of counterintuitive story? What is the true value of our words? All right, let's just quickly recap this whole language paradox. So we started with this common assumption, right? That to get ahead, you have to assimilate into the dominant language, in this case, Russian. And yeah, the data did show that as people get more successful, they do tend to use their minority language less. But then came the twist. Being bilingual itself is actually linked to better school results, even in Russian. And the final kicker, the big payoff, that bilingual advantage turns into way higher wages down the road. And that brings us to one last really big question. I mean, this whole story shows us that something we might assume is a disadvantage can actually be this powerful, hidden asset. So you have to wonder, in a world that's always pushing us all to be the same, what other incredible assets are we at risk of just throwing away, all because we've decided they have no value?